Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to those of you who are Greene County Leader alumni and those of you who are joining for a taste of Greene County Leaders. Welcome to everybody who is joining us now for the session and for everyone who is tuning in later for a recording of the session. We are so glad that you are here. I want to introduce myself. My name is Victoria Solomon. I am the Community Development Educator with UW-Madison Division of Extension, Greene County, and Cara Carper. Cara is online. She is the Director of the Greene County Development Corporation. And I also want to give special recognition to a number of the Greene County Leaders board members. I know we have a number joining the session today, so that is awesome. I want to share a little bit about the program this year. This is the 19th year of this iteration of Greene County Leaders. The purpose of the program is to obviously help build leadership skills. We also obviously want to deepen understanding of community issues here in Greene County communities. And we really want to help create community networks so you can connect with other people in Greene County communities. This program is possible because of a partnership with UW-Madison Division of Extension Greene County and Greene County Development Corporation, GCDC. And we are fortunate in that we have lots of strong support from lots of businesses and organizations across Greene County. So this is very much the first year of going virtual. This is new, but we got lots of great feedback and we want to provide an opportunity to look into things further. We appreciate your patience and flexibility with this, especially for this, the first session in this series this year. And I want to give a quick overview of today's session on leadership in supporting communities. So we're gonna kick things off by learning more about the circle of influence. This helps in providing perspective and is a valuable tool for leaders. Then we're going to hear from well-connected leaders in different sectors in Greene County on issues and opportunities that are being faced, responses and opportunities for people to take action and support community. Throughout this session, we encourage you to think about what we each can do. And after our panel, we'll have a give one, get one breakout session. Stay tuned about that. We'll go into that further at that time, but that'll be a way to connect with people here on the Zoom now. So we will end with a quick reflection on a big takeaway from the session. If you're an alumni, you know this is something that we like to do. If you're new, you'll see a little bit about what our sessions are like. So I'm gonna give a quick intro to Zoom in case you haven't used Zoom before. On the bottom sort of piece of the Zoom, on the left-hand side, there is a mute, unmute button. If you are calling in via phone, *6 will mute and unmute you. Next to that mute button, there's a video, on video, off video. If your internet supports you joining via video, that is fantastic and we encourage you to join. Further along, closer to the right-hand side, there is a chat function. So you may see some people saying hello, that is fantastic. We also have a reaction button down at the bottom and you'll see, we'll see about using that in a little bit. So that's kind of a very basic overview of Zoom. I do want to touch base a bit about expectations. So all the discussion today is civil. We are approaching this from a perspective of learning. Like I said, you're encouraged to turn on your video if your internet supports that. We understand if that doesn't work. If you do have your video on, kids and pets are welcome in the video. Backgrounds are not judged. If your video is on, you are more than welcome to eat during the session. We recognize this is over the lunch hour, so we totally understand that. We really want to be flexible. We will be pausing the recording for breakout sessions. And if you are calling in and cannot see what is written down, you will receive the documents after the session today. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker of today, Larry Jones. Larry is a leadership and organizational development specialist in Wisconsin. He's with UW-Madison Division of Extension, and he's worked in community development and disaster response efforts in Asia, Africa, and Central and South America. Larry will be covering the circle of influence, and I am really excited for having him join us. There is a lot going on these days, and it can be really overwhelming. And I think the circle of influence is really a helpful way of looking at things, a way to sort of help keep perspective. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Larry.
Thanks, Victoria, and thanks to all of you as leaders for taking out time over lunch and early this afternoon just to spend time growing your capability, experiences, expertise. I'm going to share my screen. And Victoria, I'm looking at you just to make sure it's showing up. Okay, that's great. When Victoria invited me to participate in this, and she asked me to talk a little bit about this tool. It's really a tool, circle of influence, circle of concern. I have to admit, I smiled. With real pleasure, because over my life, there are a couple of tools or frameworks that I have found very helpful, and this is one of them. It's a very simple tool, and yet it's a powerful tool. It's something that I've used individually to try and help myself as a leader get focused on what is it that I really need to be doing. I've used it with groups or teams that are charged with getting something done. And again, it's a focusing kind of a tool. Believe it or not, I've used it with my daughters. They're both grown adults right now. They would roll their eyes if they heard me say that. But it's the kind of thing that you can actually use in your personal life, again, to have a conversation and to bring focus to something that is currently a challenge. Let me be real clear. We've got 25 minutes together. So here's where I hope we will all be at about 12:35. So in 25 minutes, you're going to be able to teach the circle of influence and circle of concern to someone else. Hopefully within 25 minutes, you're going to have an opportunity to sharpen your focus on a leadership opportunity that you currently face. And then also within 25 minutes, you're going to have an opportunity to share a personal example in your own life where you've grown your circle of influence. So I'm going to ask you to take out a piece of paper and a blank piece of paper. And I'm going to make the assumption that you all watched the 6-minute video that Victoria sent out a few days ago. And what I'd like you to do on that piece of paper, and you're not going to have to share this with anybody on video, I'd like you to draw out a diagram that depicts the circle of influence and circle of concern. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. And if you didn't have a chance to watch the video, you could just fake it. So you hear circle of influence, circle of concern, just draw what you think that might look like. And once you've done that, then I would ask you to put someplace on that piece of paper a statement that describes a current leadership opportunity that you face. So a statement is like 3 to 5 words. And again, this is just for yourself. We're not going to ask you to share this with a larger group. What's a current leadership opportunity that you are facing? It could be in your job. It could be in a community leadership role. For that matter, it could be in a personal relationship. Okay, I'm going to assume, and I'll show you, I'm going to assume that people came up with something that looks kind of like this. Now, so somewhere on that piece of paper, you've defined you have your leadership opportunity statement. And then something that looks kind of like that on the right, circle of concern, circle of influence. If yours doesn't look like that, I'd ask you to do a quick correction. And again, we're not going to have you share that. Okay, now I'm going to walk you through one that I'm currently, one of my own personal leadership challenges at this point. And I'm going to use this as an example to kind of help flesh out what this actually means in terms of a model. So as Victoria mentioned, part of my work is an international work, and I'm currently the chairman of the board of an international organization that's registered in Geneva, Switzerland. And the pandemic has wreaked havoc across the globe. And as a board, we've realized we need to really rethink and refigure how we do our work. And so one of our challenges is reframing our board committees, and I'm just going to highlight one. We actually need to reframe the purpose of our audit committee. And so our audit committee has done good work, and its focus has tended to be looking backwards. So it's making sure we have the right checks and balances in place in terms of the use of money, how money is distributed, how it's used according to what funders' expectations are. But it's a pretty much focused on doing things right. And what we're realizing is we actually need that committee to continue to do that work, but we need them to take on some other things. We need that committee to look not just at audit, but finances more broadly, and help us get out ahead of the curve in terms of how do we want to finance the work of the organization, and focus in on risk management. What are the broad kinds of risks the organization faces? Not just financial, but we have staff around the world who are in unsafe conditions, who are working in pretty tenuous contexts. So risk is in regard to staff safety, so a variety of risks. So that's the challenge. How do you repurpose this particular board committee? And I'm the board chair. Bylaws state that I can't be on that board, on that committee. What do you think? And I'll ask you to verbalize it, or you can write it in the chat. What are some of the things that I care about, that you think I care about as the board chair, when it comes to repurposing and reframing the purpose of this committee? What do you think is on my mind that I'm concerned about, that's important to me, that I care about? Sticking to the purpose of the group? Yep. Making sure that the needs of others are involved. So that's correct. You know, one of the things that we want to make sure is that committee is not only doing its work well, but it's doing its well in relationship to the other committees on the board. Given the nature of that committee, it's also comprised of staff from the organization, the financial staff. So making sure that they are involved in setting the purpose. Continue the future of the organization. I mean, that's huge. That when it comes to the area of risk, you've seen organizations go down in a short period of time simply because they have not understood the risks they face and managed it well. What do you think are what do I care about in terms of the actual dynamics of that committee? I'll tell you, I want the people to get along. I want, civil discussions where they are bringing different perspectives. They're listening to one another, but they're also getting along, because what can happen is if there tends to be conflict, the chair can get pulled into that. And frankly, I don't like dealing with that kind of stuff. I'd rather that got handled. So I want the committee to get along. What else do you think I'm concerned about?
Larry, there was a comment about keeping them engaged. Civil discussions, productive and effective, being honest but respectful,
Yep.
what others can bring to the table.
Yes. So those are all things that I would say, yep, that's on my heart. Those are things I'm concerned about. Out of all those things, I'm not in those meetings. I'm actually in the bylaws. I'm not to be on that committee. Out of all those concerns, what are the things that you think I can directly influence as the board chair? It's not my committee. I'm not in the meetings. Okay, I can encourage timeliness in terms of I can communicate to the chair of that committee. We've got a board meeting coming up. We need this kind of information from the committee. Yep, I can be real clear on here are the expectations of reporting. I'm sorry. Yep, I'm reading the chat. I can be real clear on here's what the board needs to hear from your committee on our next call. So Christopher's written, change and update scope. What can I do as the board chair to make sure that that scope of work is appropriate given the purpose of the committee? So one of the things that I can do, and actually that we are doing, is stating real clear expectations of what's within that scope of that committee and what's outside of the scope of the committee. Making clear in terms of expectations, in terms of what are the kinds of decisions that that committee has the authority to make, and what are the decisions that they need to bring to the board as a whole for that board to make. So there are certain things that I can do as the board chair to help reframe the purpose of that board committee, even though I'm not directly a part of that committee. And there are a number of things that though I'm concerned about, so like the personal dynamics, that the time is used efficiently and effectively, that the chair is equipped, that the chair is running the committee well. Those are things within my concern that I do care about, but I can't get in there and micromanage the committee. Okay, so that's the example, and we can play it out, but get the main idea. Here's a leadership challenge that I'm faced with. What are all the things about that challenge or opportunity that I care about, and of those, which ones can I directly influence? Okay, I'm going to just stop, see if you have any questions at this point, questions or comments.
For questions or comments, feel free to put those in the chat or unmute yourself and ask verbally, whatever you're most comfortable with. Any questions or comments for Larry?
I'm going to assume I'm just so compelling and clear that all questions have been addressed. And if it's a bad assumption, wrong assumption, I ask you to stop me and raise a question. What I'm going to ask you to do now, though, is I'm going to have you go back to your particular leadership opportunity, and with this framework, just jot down briefly, what are a couple of things that you care about when it comes to that particular opportunity? And of those, which are ones that you can directly do something about in terms of your influence? So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Give you one more minute. Okay, there's just one other key idea in this model that I want to highlight, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. When you see the diagram on the right, again, I'll look in the chat, or if somebody wants to verbalize, what does that diagram communicate? There's a leadership principle here that this is communicating. What do you think it is? It's about growing your circle of influence. And how do I do that? Al, you're right. And I'm not asking you specifically, but this is a picture of growing your circle of influence. And how do I do that? Positive energy flows outward and pushes out. That's right. Focus on the things you can control, or Derek, that you're right. Focus on things you can control or influence. Yep. If you grow your circle of influence, you can make changes in more areas you care about. Definitely leadership is an art. That if I focus in on those things that I can directly influence, my ability to influence grows. It might be my ability to influence personally, but let's go back to that example of the chair of this committee. Rather than going in and micromanaging how he or she does that work, if I instead come alongside them and say, here are the clear expectations, and what can I do to help support you in that, he or she's going to be growing in their own leadership. And they'll be doing that within their own spheres of influence. Now, there's another diagram that for the sake of time, I didn't add. The converse of this principle is also true. That the more that I muck around, and that's the word I would use, the more that I muck around and focus my energies on those things that I'm concerned about, but I can't directly influence, my influence tends to shrink. So, if let's say that I'm at a coffee break during a board meeting, and it's clear that there's conflict within, I come up against conflict within that committee, and I try to insert myself and try and resolve that. What I've basically done is I've undermined the leadership of that committee chair, and I've kind of started to micromanage. And then people will start to say, well, Larry's gonna fix it anyway. Why should I take care of it? And so what happens is my real ability to influence starts to shrink. You know what it is to be around people who badmouth other leaders, or badmouth their leader, or badmouth a peer department head or whatever. And as they continually to do that, others realize what's going on, and they actually tend to walk away from or be don't want to be involved, because it's a negative kind of energy. So the principle is, as I focus on those things I can influence, my influence grows. If I'm focusing on those things that I'm concerned about, but I can't directly influence, the converse is true. My circle of influence tends to shrink. Okay. So here we are going to break you into rooms of 3. Now, before Victoria's going to do that for us, but before she does, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. There's going to be 3 of you in the room. One of you needs to teach the idea of circle of concern to the other 2. The second person needs to teach the circle of influence to the other two members. And the third person teaches the leadership principle of growing your circle of influence. So that's the first part of your assignment. You all just quickly decide who's going to do what and do it. And then the fourth thing I'd ask you to do is to reflect on your own personal professional life at a time when you saw your influence grow. What happened and why do you think that took place? So I think we have about 6 minutes, 6 or 7 minutes for this exercise. Any questions on the assignment? Teach the 3 things, divide it up, and then reflect on a time when your circle of influence has grown. Victoria, I'll have you divide them up, and then you will get a note. You'll get a message that'll come up, I'll say in about 5 minutes or so, 6 minutes, that'll bring you back to the larger group. So thanks.
Okay, so we're gonna split up into breakout sessions.
Okay, well, welcome back. I was in a good conversation with Matt and Derek. What I want to do is I want to wrap it up and turn it over to the next part of our session. I want to end by just saying this, and I wish I had started this way. I really want to affirm each of you as leaders. I can't think of a time when our communities need quality leaders leading well. And we're getting hit from a lot of different angles, and I hope that this real simple tool can help you stay grounded on the things that you can directly influence, because I believe that as we do that, we more effectively influence those around us. So with that, I want to affirm you. I want to thank you again for your leadership in Greene County and if beyond Greene County. I'm gonna turn it over to Al, where he's going to facilitate a panel that includes leaders in their community and opportunities to support what's going on in the community. So with that, Al, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Larry. In my breakout group, I had a couple people. Bridget was one of them. We kind of talked about how we thought Larry had a nice cornerstone, right? So we want to teach in Greene County leaders action. And one thing to allow for more action is, like Larry said, focusing on things that you can actually impact. What can you actually do? There's a lot of things that are going on, obviously, you know, in the bigger sense of the community, in the world, that you might like, you might not like, and you might not be able to always influence, but what can you focus on? So with Greene County leaders, we try to bring things, we try to give a big scope, big picture, and then we kind of bring things down to Greene County. So I'm going to start out with my leadership topic was actually leading through COVID. So that was one thing that there was a lot of, as a manager at Colony Brands, I have a team and I have to lead them through these kind of things that pop up. Obviously, this is a big thing that's probably wasn't on anybody's radar screen, but you get to work through it. One of the pieces that I put down was getting people to understand the impacts. So I want to start with talking with one of our panelists, Tanna. Tanna is going to talk to us a little bit about how her team is working with COVID. So Tanna, everyone's interested in how COVID is impacting the world. That obviously impacts us locally. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen so far, what you think is going to happen, and how your local team is involved?
Okay, well, again, I want to thank you for having me. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yep.
Okay, and sorry I couldn't be on the video. My internet's not working very well, so I resorted to the phone. COVID, it's consumed our lives for the last 6 months. Now, I don't get as heavily as public health, but and you talk about a team, I'm just kind of wondering, but do you think I have a team here in emergency management, or how county departments are working on this? I'm a little would like clarification on that.
Yeah, either team, whatever you consider kind of your little circle of influence, right? So we talked about circle
Okay,
of influence.
okay,
So, yeah.
okay. Because my office is very small. It's just myself and a 20-hour assistant who's basically been full-time since March, thank
Oh, wow.
goodness. And so as far as the COVID team, when this started, we got together with Roanne Warden, the public health director, immediately, and we knew that we needed to really get many departments together. So we opened an emergency operations center. We're still meeting weekly it's mostly a discussion point at this point. We do identify things that need to be worked on. And we have what we call an incident action plan that's developed every week. I have a team member from the Southwest Incident Management team that does that IAP for us. And the Southwest Incident Management team is a regional team of people who are made up of people who specialize in emergency management. And we have members from various organizations, police, state patrol, firemen, emergency managers, people like that. We help communities when things go bad. So our Kent Anderson's been assisting with that. That kind of is our guiding direction to help us identify what we need to do every week. We have representatives from all emergency services like law enforcement, fire, EMS, the hospital, of course, public health. We have a public information officer and policy group and various things like that. This is all set up through emergency management. That's how we run when we have disasters. We like to set up like this. It keeps us guided in how we do things.
So Tanna, it sounds like your first response when this started to happen was that the network kind of went into effect, right? You have the network available.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We got our county partners together, and and they would represent all the agencies under them too, to keep them informed. That was a little difficult at times. This was really new for everybody too, to work together in Emergency Operations Center. We don't do that very often, so it was a little shaky at first. But now we're doing better because, well, we've had 6 months of this. So. But also networking is I depend on other county emergency management managers as well. I have state Wisconsin emergency management that I lean into if I need assistance or and people like that. So it's pretty broad. Wisconsin emergency management really directs a lot of things that I do just as Wisconsin Department of Health does for public health in this too. They all, as they saw at first too, when they were trying to work together, it didn't come together really well. But then they realigned and got things working better.
So maybe Tanna, you can kind of explain to us: is there something that you're working on, and then is there something that we can do to help to make things easier or better, or help with our circles of influence? It's a big question.
Well, yeah. Well, for emergency management, our major responsibility right now is we are in charge of surveying many agencies for their needs of personal protective equipment, PPE. And we survey about 100 agencies every 14 days and provide them a list of equipment that the state can provide. And then the next week we get the order in and we have to redistribute it. We're doing that right now. So I had 22 agencies that I had to package up their orders. It's extremely time consuming. And then I also help public health whatever they need. Like today they're starting a community testing site here at the Armory in Monroe. So if you want more information on that, just go to their website and click on the COVID-19 testing bar right on their homepage and directs you to all that information. I kind of provided a lot of resources for some of that they needed, some of the hard stuff like highway signs and electronic sign from the highway department, coordinated a lot of that back behind the scenes kind of stuff.
Nice. Could you, Tanna, put that in the, when you're done here, can you put that into the chat so if people want to look at that, you
Sure.
can kind of put the information there for them?
Okay, I'll try to get back on the internet. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, you're not on the internet, right? Otherwise, if you send something to Victoria can shoot it out to everybody.
Oh, okay, sure, I will do that.
Tanna, just email that to me and I'll make sure everybody gets that. Thank you.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time, Tanna. I'm sure you've spent a lot of hours working through this issue, and we appreciate your efforts.
Well, thank you. It's been very trying, and especially the first 3 months. It was just really crazy for everybody. But like I said, the public health got the brunt of this, and they're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. Now I'm gonna turn it over to Teresa. Teresa wears a lot of hats in our community. So Teresa, if you don't know Teresa Keehn, she's a member of the Monroe School Board. She's the executive director of Greene County United Way. She's also on the Greene County Leaders Board, and she's a mom, which I know because my son likes to hang out with her sons. So, so let's start with the school district, Teresa. Maybe if you could give us some high-level views of what's going on around the school district and educate us.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for the introduction and thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here today and glad to see everybody here participating in our new Greene County Leaders. In COVID, this is what it looks like. So I'm excited to see all these people participating. Like Al said, I am on the school board here in Monroe, but I think a lot of what we're doing in Monroe is very similar across all of the schools in the county. And I think this pandemic has shown us, I think we knew before, right, how important our schools are. But I think in this pandemic, we realized how much they do outside of just educating our most precious resources, our kids, right? So they not only provide education, but they feed our kids. Our communities and economic systems rely on them so the parents can go to work. The schools provide critical social emotional support and mental health services. And so just a full gamut. And so as we prepared in these uncharted times, the schools across the county, and again, I'm on the Monroe School Board, but I truly believe this is happening in all the schools in the county, and I think all the schools have similar plans. They really worked hard to come together as to work with families and community members and business leaders and health professionals. So if you're a parent in the district, you probably received lots of surveys on what we should do. And I think they really took in all of the information to try to come up with a plan that was best for our community and ultimately to make sure that our staff and students were as safe and healthy as possible. And so what most of the districts came up with was a 3-tiered plan based on the current level of health risk in the county. A plan A would be kids are in school full-time, full capacity. A plan B would be some hybrid model. Monroe is going, half the kids go 1 week, half the kids go the other week, and in their off weeks, they get virtual instruction or a fully virtual model. I also believe most districts gave families an option to have a full virtual model, so if they didn't want their kids in school. And across the county, about 10 to 25% of kids, depending on the school district, are in a full virtual model this year. And then aside from that, they took the data that we had and they said, okay, what do we know we need to do to keep our kids safe? So in Monroe, everyone has to wear masks, staff and students. Temperature checks are taken every day. Cleaning protocols have been increased and enhanced. Social distancing has been enforced, and a lot of common areas have been redesigned and refigured to make that happen. They've communicated with parents, reiterated checklists of how to keep our kids safe and what symptoms to look for and when to keep your kids home from school. And if there are things that come up, then what are the protocols? They have an outline of protocols that they'll be using to help monitor the situation, to help contact trace, and to help mitigate and stop anything that happens throughout the district.
Sure. I think there's a lot of stuff, Teresa. You mentioned a lot of things, but people might not realize, or they might not think about it because they don't deal with it as often. But there's a lot of things that the school district works through. Like you mentioned, mental health. You mentioned support for food for people. I know there's different organizations that get lists to help people with clothing, or even birthday parties. Very simple things that all funnel through the school system. And there's a lot of things. COVID is one risk, and keeping people healthy is one of the many risks that the school system has to handle. So maybe if we could shift gears a little bit over to your United Way hat, yep. Right? Put a different hat on.
Yes.
How is the United Way changing? Because these needs are changing, right? They're way different than they were when you started in your position, which wasn't too long ago.
Right.
And you get started with that, and now they're changing things for you.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's kind of a good segue. One of the things that we found was that a lot of our families needed food during the day. So one of the good transition in a way, maybe the partnership between the schools and United Way across the county was every district has like a backpack program. In Monroe, they call it Backpack Buddies, where food is sent home with families who need it on the weekends. And in Monroe, because they're the largest, they organize their own Backpack Buddies program, and throughout the rest of the schools in the county all have a similar program, and that's managed through the Food Cares Food Pantry out of Monticello for all the other districts. In some districts, we saw requests increase up to 200% in districts, so we can see that partnership. So when Al's talking about, what do we need and where are we at, it's really working together with organizations. So that's just one thing, one way, kind of a good partnership between the schools and United Way. So we really work to help meet that need and to provide funding so that kids who needed food were able to get food. I'm going to go ahead and share, if it works, my screen. And I'm going to show you a document, because one of the things, and I got to be in a breakout room with Rick Malczewski, and we talked about making sure we have not only data when we make decisions on how do we assess needs and how do we determine what the needs are, but also then how do we report back those needs and have and show people what we're doing. So can everyone see this?
Yep.
You guys see my screen? Awesome. So this is a data point that actually was collected over 2 years. So it's a long time to collect data, and this is just coming out now. It's just fresh, I would say, in the last month or so. And ALICE stands for asset limited, income constrained, but employed. So these are our neighbors. These are our people who are living amongst us all over. So this specific data that we're looking at is Greene County data, okay? So we know that 22% of the households, so we have 15,098 households in our county. We know that 22% are ALICE and 8% are in poverty. So the ALICE number is really, we know poverty, right? We can all talk about that, but we know that that's a really low threshold. The ALICE data really looks at our basic needs and can they be met? And so when we look at that number is kind of staggering, that we have 22% of the people in our communities are ALICE. And we can break this down in even more. So in Greene County, 51% of our Hispanic population fit under ALICE. 63% of our households under 25 that live in Greene County fit ALICE. 24% of our households where the people are between the ages of 22 or 25 and 44 fit in ALICE. 22% of households 45 to 65, and 44% of households with people over 65 fit in ALICE. So we can see that here. And then if we look at what types of families are struggling, so we can see in Greene County, we have an increase in single families and individuals. So we can see that we have 6,700 families that are single or cohabitating, and that 74% in this group are above the ALICE, but 20% are in the ALICE here if they're single. Again, families with kids, 14%. This dark blue is the poverty. And then our over 65 age, you can see here, there's 4,100 families or people in that group. Does that make sense? Please, if someone has a question, Victoria, if you see a question in the chat, 'cause I'm not looking at it, please let me know. Feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, question, Teresa. So how can we help, right?
Yes.
Would we reach out to Backpack Buddies? Would we reach out to the food pantry? Would we reach out to the United Way? What groups or what areas, or how can we help, either, with time or with resources?
Yep.
What would that look like?
Yes, perfect. That's a perfect segue. That's kind of where I'm going. So I'm going to just finish this little piece so you can see this. And actually, I think if I do this, I can even post it in the chat so you guys can have this. But this then looks at just, this breaks down the demographics by community, and then where people are working. 28% of the people in our community are working a salary job, 29% are hourly, and the rest are here's where we're at. So I think in Al's question, in Al's point, and that's where I want to get back to, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody and I'll try to put that link there. I think it's important to know our data first, right? First, before we can make any decisions, we have to have a good data system. And so that's where I think United Way has been critical. And so when the pandemic started, we quickly established a COVID-19 community response fund to be able to fund some of these things that we know are issues. Things like the Backpack Buddies program, things like Salvation Army for people who needed emergency rent, shelter, utility assistance, Family Promise, Men's Resource Center. So what we were able to do is really take a needs assessment of the community to determine who needed support, how we can help the most people, and how to have the biggest impact. Additionally, what I would say is that our needs we're not done, right? We might be kind of almost at the tip of the iceberg as to what some of the needs are. I think we're eventually in the next few months going to see where unemployment really settles in and what the needs truly are. And so there's three things that I would say we need to get involved in. We need to give where we can. And so the big needs assessments that we've really come away with this are food. I think we've done a really outstanding job meeting food needs. The places where we're really working now and have some really coordinated efforts are around childcare. We're kind of in a childcare crisis right now. Up to 40% of our childcare facilities are potentially could close. And now with schools being in a hybrid mode, it's more imperative than ever. And so that's an effort that any way you can get involved with that, I would highly suggest. Because not only is our capacity, if we take all of our kids up through age 7, we would have capacity in our current settings for about a third of our kids. Fortunately, a lot of, not all of our kids need to have daycare, but our workforce requires it, right? And so, and not only does our workforce require it, but our kids deserve it. They deserve high quality people in front of them at those young, most vulnerable years. And so that's been a huge priority. And just making sure people have the basic needs are met. So balancing kind of working forward and what do we need to do to rebuild and reimagine what we want Greene County to look like, because that's kind of where we're headed, as well as maintaining the needs of the people in our community, our neighbors, and our friends, and the people who are living right here among us, making sure they have all of their needs met.
Right.
So I would say you'll be watching. So what I'm also going to say, it's kind of a teaser, but be watching. We were going to have a full volunteer day of service, but with COVID, it was going to happen right in August during the peak. And so we didn't do it, but have been working with agencies on what are volunteer needs and how can we put some of those together safely where we can volunteer maybe in person, but also some virtual options. So be on the lookout for that. And I will share that with Victoria when we have more of that, because any way that I could say people get involved and volunteer is important, as well as advocate. So if we know the data, knowledge is power. So using the information on the ALICE data or the school district data or whatever it is to help make the decisions so that we can maximize our resources. I think it's really important that our resources are finite, so we maximize the resources that we have by working together. Certainly the power of many is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and Teresa, you can send out some more information. People are asking about different ways that they can help. So if you've got some other ideas, you can send that out, and Victoria can send that out in the notes.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
And I think you make a good point, and this is where I'm going to segue to Kristi. I know as a Kiwanian, and there are several Kiwanians on, and if you're an optimist, my condolences, but we like you too. That's okay. A lot of people, I know that when I've done like disc golf, I go to my local community business owners and I ask if they want to support disc golf, or if they want to support Backpack Buddies, or if they want to support whatever effort it is. We do lean on our business owners, and they're very giving in the Monroe community. So Kristi, I think I've saved another great speaker for last, obviously not least here, but we know that Monroe is a very local community. We shop local, right? We have, and you have a very unique position within that. If you don't know Kristi, she's a business owner. She owns Rainbow Confections and also Fudge Raisers in town. But she also helps lend her talents to the community with business development, helping new people start new businesses. Obviously, you probably have a heck of a story for us. Hopefully, we have people who have good financial backing right now so that they can weather the storm, but maybe tell us about what you're seeing and what you think we can do to help.
Sure. Thanks, Al, and thanks to all of you. So I work with the Small Business Development Center. We are funded a variety of ways, but primarily through the Small Business Administration, through the UW system. And I have to shout out to Cara, Carper, and Greene County Development Corp. For also providing some of our funding as well. We actually provide free confidential business consulting services to people in all stages of business, from the entrepreneurs, folks who have an idea and little else, through, okay, how do I actually get this started and running, to I need help with a marketing plan, I need help with employee situations, how do I grow this, should I open another location, all the way through, hey, I'd like to sell this business or exit, and what are the strategies and what are some options. So full lifespan of small businesses. So some of the questions we're hearing a lot lately are, how are businesses doing? And the answer on that one is it depends a little bit. If the businesses had really strong local support already and or technology and multiple channels of selling, they may have be weathering the storm fairly well. Some of our pizza restaurant clients, for example, they're going insane because everyone's calling and ordering pizza because you can't go out to eat anymore, things like that. So they're really busy. Some of our small local retailers are really hurting, quite frankly. Everyone's been shopping online, for example, or not sure what the hours are anymore, or struggling with whether and how to shop locally. So it sort of depends, business by business, how folks are doing. And I can speak to this one personally as well, anxiety about our employees. worried, are we going to be able to pay them next month? Worried, oh my gosh, what if someone gets sick? Feeling really responsible for protecting those around us as well. It's been really hard to plan inventory and promotions, right? Should I have a sale in October? I don't even know if I'm going to still be here in October, or some of the things that I've got people calling me up and saying. A lot of your small retailers, by the way, they actually have to order their inventory 6 months ahead of time. So right now they're ordering spring clothing and spring shoes and having no idea of whether or not they're going to have customers in the spring. So, Al, I really love your approach and the approach of Greene County leaders of this. All right, so how do we help? These are the challenges, but how do we help? So there are a number of things that I think we all can do to help. First is, before buying elsewhere, ask your local businesses if they can help, right? Do I stock it? No. Somebody wants it? You better believe I'll do what I can to bring it in and to make that customer happy. Small businesses can be very flexible sometimes and will move heaven and earth to make a customer happy. So even if you know it isn't available locally, ask somebody who might have a similar business, whether or not they could find something for you and order it in. If you're comfortable with it, and if it's accepted in the local store, please pay in cash. A lot of folks know this, but some people don't. When you pay with a debit or credit card, it actually costs the merchant generally between 2 and 4% of that transaction. Almost always it's a 25% fee, or 25-cent fee, I should say, just to use the card at all, and then additional percentage on top of that. So if you're making a purchase, let's say of only $5 or $10 or something like that, they're already losing a quarter just for swiping your card. Now, a lot of us are never going to turn away somebody using a card because we want to, there's an old saying that if you're in business and someone's offering you money, take it, and quickly. But if you have an option to carry cash and the business accepts it, understand that that 2 or 4% can be a real difference in our small businesses locally. A couple of other very specific things that you can do to help is cooperative and collaborative advertising. If you own a business yourself, share in the cost of advertising. We've got a great billboard just south of town that Toy House and Joanne's Dress Shop and a couple of our other local businesses paid together, and they sponsor that billboard together. So that's a great way of working together, and maybe there's something in your business that you can do to collaborate and advertise with somebody else. If you're not in a business yourself, those that you love and support, feel free to share their Facebook posts, forward their email newsletters, like, comment, that sort of thing. It costs you nothing but maybe 20 seconds of your time. Not only does that help get the word out about that local business, but man, is that an ego boost. Boy, is it a morale boost. Somebody comments on a picture of our fudge or a picture of our popcorn. I got to tell you, I'm not responsible for our social media. It's one of my employees that does it because she does a better job than I would. But boy, does she do a little dance. Look, I got 27 likes today. Oh, look at how many people shared that post about raspberry fudge, you know. So little things like that for our local businesses mean a great deal. I think another thing that you can do is that we all need to do with each other, small business or not these days, is have patience and compassion with each other. I've noticed some of my fellow businesses downtown have had to close for a week or two because an employee became infected. I'm also aware of infections with larger businesses that did not close and did not make it public. And so having some compassion for people, regardless of what decisions they've made, I think can go a long way. And then finally, please let people know about the Small Business Development Center. As I said, what I do is free and confidential. I help people in every stage of business. I've been there myself. I've started 3 businesses from scratch. The first one I was 27, had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I have earned the gray hairs on my head. My job is to spare other people from some of the mistakes I've made along the way. My first business I started, I grew it for 14 years and I sold it. still get a little check every month for the benefit of that. And so I can help other people do that as well. If you know people who want to retire from their business, generally like to talk to them 2 to 5 years before they want out, to be able to structure it appropriately so they can sell it and get the most value out of it. So when people have heard of the Small Business Development Center, which is sadly rather rare, I only heard about it when they hired me. They usually think of us as starting a business, and we're delighted to do that, but we're also really glad to help you throughout the way. I have become an expert, unfortunately, in disaster funding for small businesses. So if you know of folks who have availed themselves of various acronyms, Paycheck Protection Program, Economic Injury Development loans, that sort of things, I'm the one to go to in the state of Wisconsin to help folks out with understanding those loans and the implications of it. We are eagerly awaiting to see if Congress provides further assistance. They are talking. We're not getting very far at the moment, but when and if there's additional disaster funding for businesses, please have folks call me. It's my job, and I'm here to help.
That's a lot of stuff.
I thought you had a 1 o'clock deadline, so I was trying to talk fast. Sorry.
Well, your information is always interesting, so we don't want to cut you off. But I did think it was, you talked about how we can help. So if you know a business owner that might need some help or could use a little advice, obviously the information's included in the chat, and Victoria will send it out. So they're more than welcome to that. As always, Kristi, you're very energetic. If people don't know you, you always have a zest for moving things forward. It's always is interesting to talk to you. I'm going to move things over to Victoria now to kind of move on to the next part of the conversation. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, huge thank you, everybody. Thanks, Al. Thanks to our awesome panelists, Teresa, Tanna, and Kristi. Our next piece of the session is an opportunity for you to connect a bit more with some of your fellow participants. We will have another breakout session. I think those are really great to be able to connect. And this one is intentionally going to be kind of informal. So you'll be able to share your name, the community where you live and where you work, and then we're going to have a give one, get one conversation. So this is an opportunity to share any good news that you may want to share, or any positive resources or opportunities that you may want people to be aware of. So for example, tomorrow, we've talked a lot about how there are a lot of people going through some really difficult things right now. Tomorrow is the official day for the Go Orange Challenge. So you can wear orange, take a selfie, post it on Facebook with a specific hashtag, and the hashtag is Hunger Action Month, and this will be a way to help get food donated to food pantries. Another example, Greene County, we have lots of great things going on. My husband and I live just a bit south of New Glarus, and honestly, we have been walking our dog through the trails at New Glarus Woods more than we had in the past. I didn't realize we really weren't exploring as much as we could, and I think this is a great opportunity to explore further. So in the chat, I'm going to put a link to a Google Doc. I understand not everybody can access the Google Docs. That's okay. You'll still be able to have conversation in a group, and you can have someone jot some things down. You don't have to share everything. That's totally fine. Go ahead and open up the Google Doc if you're able to. Jot some notes down if you have opportunities or things that you want to share with people. And this will also be a way for people in different breakout groups to be able to connect. I also, I want to make sure that you have time together. So you'll really be able to connect. So the other piece of the breakout group, you'll be able to scroll down and just share a takeaway that you have from today. So
To your point, Victoria, part of Greene County Leaders is the networking. So
yeah,
that's why Victoria is talking about this, that she wants people to be able to talk to each other and network, because as the normal class goes, that is a very important piece, is the group knitting together as a group and coming together and sharing their different stories. So that's why we're kind of doing the breakouts, to both facilitate learning and to facilitate networking. So thank you, Victoria.
yeah, exactly. Thanks, Al. So with that, I'm going to pause the recording again. And welcome back as people are joining this. I think this looks like some great conversations. So personally, I had not known about the milespaddle.com, and that's definitely something I want to check out. I see there are still some things being jotted down, and you can by all means keep writing those down. I think the thing that I love about these types of conversations is that I think no matter how long we are in a place, there's always so much more to learn about. There's always so much more to explore and enjoy. And I think that's fantastic. I think Greene County's got so many good things going on, so many things happening in Greene County, so many great resources and assets. And it's easy to focus on the difficult things, and I know we have a lot of challenges. At the same time, we have a lot of great things here, so that's a great piece. I just want to do a quick check-in. Down at the bottom of your screen, there's a reaction tab, and please go ahead and put a thumbs up reaction if you enjoyed that breakout session, if you enjoyed that conversation, if you found it beneficial, if you met someone new, or if you learned about a new resource. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I also want to share, Cara put a great link to an article in the chat. That's definitely an article I've seen. I know a lot of people that I'm connected with have found a lot of value from that article. So I definitely encourage you checking that out. For those of you who cannot see the chat, I will be sure to include that in the resources as well. So I just want to say, if you haven't yet filled out a learning or takeaway from participating in this session, that is on page 2 of that Google Doc, or feel free to put that in the chat. We'll also send out a follow-up eval. We just appreciate your feedback on things like that. So that'll be an option. Huge thank you to everyone for joining us today. We hope you can join us for the next session on Wednesday, October 14. For that session, we will be focusing on leadership in local government. So with that, huge thank you, everybody.